Marcus Reynolds gazed out from the expansive windows of his penthouse suite at the Four Seasons Boston, idly swirling a glass of 30-year-old scotch. The city lights twinkled beneath him, resembling a field of scattered diamonds. Yet his thoughts drifted far away. Another successful merger, another billion-dollar deal sealed, yet the triumph felt empty. At 42, he possessed all the wealth one could desire. Yet the void that had shadowed him for the last 7 years appeared to deepen with every day that went by. The gentle ping of his phone captured his focus. Yet another communication from the board, extending their congratulations on the recent acquisition. Marcus placed his drink on the table and adjusted his tailored Tom Ford suit with precision. The acclaimed dining establishment, Saltwater, awaited eagerly. At least he could savor a peaceful dinner before the press conference tomorrow. The descent in the elevator was quiet, interrupted only by the soft whir of the machinery. Marcus glanced at his reflection in the gleaming brass walls, noticing the silver strands weaving through his dark hair at the temples, while stress lines marked his eyes, a testament to the pressures he faced despite his routine spa visits. 7 years of immersing himself in his work had taken a toll on him, yet it felt preferable to ruminating on his losses. The maitre d' instantly identified him, leading him to his familiar secluded corner table that offered a panoramic view of the Boston Public Garden. "Would you like your regular Bordeaux, Mr. Reynolds?" Marcus nodded, his gaze drifting over the evening's menu, yet his mind was elsewhere. In that moment, he caught the sound of a laugh that seemed to freeze the very fabric of time, a haunting echo from his history that he had desperately sought to erase. His head jerked up, scanning the restaurant with intent. There, 3 tables away, sat Catherine Kate, his former spouse. She appeared just as he recalled, but in a way that radiated an even greater beauty. Her honey-blonde hair shimmered in the warm light, her smile as bright as the day they first crossed paths in law school. Yet it was not merely her presence that sent chills coursing through him. On either side of her sat 2 children, a boy and a girl, likely around 6 or 7 years of age. The boy's solemn demeanor and deep hair reflected his own, while the girl's delightful laughter was unmistakably Kate. The similarity was unmistakable. Marcus clutched the table's edge, his knuckles paling as the revelation struck him with the force of a tangible impact. 2 of a kind. Yet he was unaware of the existence of twins. The sommelier glided over with the Bordeaux, yet Marcus hardly paid attention. Thoughts surged through him, 7 years since the separation, recalling the timing of their final month together, Kate's peculiar actions just before she departed. All his previous assumptions about their separation were abruptly transformed, uncovering a harsh and painful truth. The girl, his daughter, turned slightly, her profile so recognizable it stirred a deep ache in his chest. Then the boy glanced upward, his gaze locking with Marcus's from across the restaurant. Those eyes, his eyes, expanded with intrigue, as if perceiving a bond he had yet to grasp. Kate turned her attention to where her son was looking, and Marcus observed as the color faded from her face. The wine glass in her hand quivered just a bit, the sole indication that she felt as unsettled as he did. At that instant, Marcus Reynolds, the individual who wielded authority over multi-billion-dollar enterprises with just one signature, experienced an overwhelming sense of helplessness. 7 years of meticulously built barriers collapsed as a torrent of questions surged through his thoughts. How could she possibly hide this from him? What granted her the authority? And above all, what action would he take in response to it now? The ensuing moments elongated like warm taffy as Marcus and Kate held a silent standoff across the restaurant. Memories surged within him, recalling their final exchange 7 years prior. Her tears, his bewilderment, and the pile of divorce papers that lay between them. "I've reached my limit," she had declared. "Our desires diverge." Now those words took on a new meaning. Kate bent slightly to share a secret with the twins, then rose with an air of composed assurance. "Emma, Ethan, kindly complete your desserts. Mommy would like to have a quick chat with someone." Marcus observed her as she adjusted her navy silk dress, approaching him with the same resolute elegance that lingered in his memory from their courtroom skirmishes. "Some things remain constant. Is that you, Marcus?" Her voice remained calm, Yet he noticed the subtle shake in her hands as she paused at his table. Maybe we could have a conversation in a more secluded setting? It was an order. He remained silent, trailing behind her as she navigated the restaurant towards a secluded nook by the bar. The delicate scent of jasmine that she had worn throughout their marriage trailed behind her, awakening memories he had struggled to forget. Their thoughts. It was not a question. His voice emerged with an unexpected grit, feelings he struggled to identify looming over him. 7 years, Kate. 7 years of their existence. Departed. He observed her compose herself, straightening her shoulders as she consistently did prior to presenting a challenging legal case. Indeed, they belong to you. Kate met his gaze head-on, chin raised defiantly. Emma and Ethan. Are they really turning 7 next month? She hesitated, selecting her words with precision. 2 weeks after filing for divorce, I discovered I was pregnant. You were in Singapore finalizing the Matthews merger. The merger you mentioned would ultimately establish Reynolds Corp's presence in the industry. Marcus experienced every word as if it were a tangible strike. So, you really believed I shouldn't be informed? That I was entitled to be their father? His meticulously maintained exterior started to show signs of wear. Oh my goodness, Kate. I've missed so much. Initial strides, inaugural utterances, the beginning of academic adventures. You made your decision long before I discovered the twins. Kate interrupted, her voice laced with lingering hurt. 3 overlooked anniversaries. Spending Christmas in solitude as you dedicated your time to work during the festive season. The day I lost my father, you sent flowers with your assistant's signature, as you were too busy to attend the funeral. She inhaled unsteadily. Upon learning of my pregnancy, I faced a pivotal decision. I decided to shield them from the affection of a father who would invariably prioritize his empire above all else. Marcus prepared to voice his disagreement, but the words faltered and fell silent as he caught sight of the twins framed in the restaurant's archway. Emma meticulously sliced her chocolate cake into perfect squares, mirroring the way he approached his own confections. Ethan was engrossed in what seemed to be a substantial chapter book, his focused demeanor reflecting the serious expressions captured in Marcus's childhood photographs. They're brilliant, Kate murmured, her eyes following his gaze. Emma is already 2 grades ahead in math. Ethan possesses reading skills commensurate with a high school education and aspires to pursue a career in corporate law. A faint smile graced her lips. He expresses a desire to assist organizations in making positive contributions to the world. The unmistakable pride in her voice stirred something profound within Marcus's chest. What brings you here, Kate? He finally asked, pulling his gaze from his children. His offspring. The phrases lingered, unfamiliar and distant in his thoughts. The 4 Seasons presents a setting that's anything but ordinary. He intended no accusation, yet old habits proved difficult to shake off. Ethan clinched the state chess championship, she responded. This dinner was his reward. He selected the restaurant personally after discovering the chef's profile in a magazine. She paused, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. He shares your traits, constantly delving into research and strategizing well into the future. The burden of all he had overlooked weighed heavily on Marcus's shoulders. Chess tournaments, mathematical accomplishments, literary achievements, a myriad of fleeting instances that were meant for him to observe, to revel in. The frustration he sought to direct at Kate continually faded, giving way to a more profound and painful feeling. Remorse. Kate mentioned softly that they would be in town for 3 days. A robotics competition is set to take place tomorrow at MIT. She brushed away an unseen crease from her dress, a familiar sign of her anxiety that he recalled vividly. I understand that you might feel a strong dislike towards me at this moment, and I completely acknowledge that you have every reason to feel that way. However, Marcus, they are content. They are cherished. They mirror your essence in the most wonderful ways. The ways I fell in love with before the venture consumed all my thoughts. Just as Marcus was about to reply, Emma's voice echoed through the restaurant. Mother. Ethan's acting strange about his food once more. The unmistakable frustration in her voice, echoing Kate's, caused his heart to tighten. Kate shut her eyes for a moment, and he could observe the silent struggle unfolding on her face. "Go," he murmured softly. Yet this dialogue is far from finished. Kate gave a slight nod, pivoting back toward their table. Marcus observed her resolve the minor disagreement with effortless grace, recalling how she had previously eased tensions in high-stakes negotiations with that same soothing command. In the solitude of the alcove, Marcus retrieved his phone, swiftly canceling the press conference scheduled for tomorrow with a series of rapid texts. After 7 long years, Reynolds Corp found itself in a position of anticipation. He found himself reminiscing about the day he first crossed paths with Kate at Harvard Law, both of them driven first-year students with aspirations of making a difference in the world. In a spirited debate on corporate ethics, she confronted him, her fervor for justice perfectly aligning with his ambition for success. They found themselves united in marriage 18 months later. The initial years had unfolded just as they had envisioned. Kate achieving partnership at her firm, Marcus transforming his father's struggling company into a formidable force. They had discussed the possibility of having children in the future when the moment felt appropriate. Yet the promise of someday continued to be deferred as Marcus pursued larger deals and more ambitious acquisitions. He was convinced that Kate comprehended his aspirations, that she was aligned with his dream of creating something remarkable prior to embarking on the journey of family life. His eyes wandered once more to the twins. Emma was now articulating her thoughts with lively gestures, her hands moving in a manner reminiscent of Kate's during the closing arguments. Ethan absorbed every word, his head bobbing slightly as he carefully folded his napkin, a quirk that Marcus recalled from his own youthful desire for neatness. A recollection emerged, vivid and excruciating. Kate lingered in the doorway of his office late one night, attired for the anniversary dinner he had completely overlooked. "I refuse to be just a footnote in the narrative of your triumph, Marcus," she had declared. He had vowed to atone for his actions, already redirecting his focus to the glow of his computer screen. 2 months later, she had initiated the process of divorce. Marcus opened his calendar app, sifting through a timeline filled with meetings, deals, and acquisitions. How many of these so-called pivotal moments would he now exchange for first steps, first words, first everything? The irony was not lost on him. He had dedicated 7 years to constructing an empire for children he had never known were there. Kate's voice floated through the air, elucidating the intricacies of polynomial equations to Emma. The familiar tone she had employed years earlier, guiding him as he got ready for the bar exam. Marcus observed Ethan as he retrieved a small notebook, scribbling something with focused determination. The boy's posture and the way he gripped his pen reflected a familiar echo of his own past. Once more, his phone vibrated, the board seeking his affirmation regarding the announcement scheduled for tomorrow. In a surprising turn of events, Marcus Reynolds, renowned for his constant availability, decided to turn off his phone for the very first time in his career. The empire could bide its time. He had 7 years of fatherhood to reclaim, provided Kate and the twins would allow it. In that serene alcove, observing his newly embraced family, Marcus finally grasped the essence of what Kate had conveyed about the myriad of meanings in life. He had been constructing a legacy of wealth and influence, while she had been cultivating something far more invaluable. A tapestry woven with affection, evolution, and endless potential. The pressing inquiry at hand was if there existed space in their lives for both. If you're finding this video enjoyable and crave more content of this nature, don't forget to tap that subscribe button and activate the notification bell. In that manner, you will be sure to catch all the incredible tales we have on the horizon. Your support truly enables the channel to flourish and allows us to continue delivering more of what you enjoy. Thanks a lot. Marcus continued to grapple with his thoughts as Kate drew near once more, her demeanor cautious. "They've been inquiring about you," she murmured gently. Ethan observed the similarity. "He has a keen sense for that, doesn't he?" She turned her wedding ring around her finger. "No." Marcus suddenly noticed that her mother's ring had shifted to her right hand. Certain habits endured despite the end of a marriage. "What did you say about me to them? Concerning their father?" The thought had been simmering in his mind since the initial jolt of realization. Kate's eyes fell to the ground, only to rise once more with a newfound resolve. The truth, primarily. You were exceptional, passionate, and there was a time when our love for each other ran deep. At times, grown-ups face tough decisions. She took a moment, gathering her reflections. They are aware that you manage a substantial enterprise, even though I never referred to Reynolds Corp directly. Ethan completed a school report on sustainable business practices last month. He referenced your company as a case study, unaware that it belonged to you. The irony of his son unknowingly delving into his creations left Marcus feeling a tightness in his chest. Is there animosity towards me? The question emerged softly, betraying a fragility he seldom revealed. Kate's expression became a touch gentler. They don't dislike you, Marcus. It's impossible to harbor hatred for someone who was never truly known. Her words were not intended to hurt, yet they pierced through with unexpected intensity. They have a keen interest in you, it seems, particularly now that they have laid eyes on you. Emma has already discerned the reason behind your lingering gaze. Marcus brushed his fingers through his hair, a fidget from his law school days that he believed he had left behind. I would like to meet them, Kate. Correctly. Not as an unfamiliar face in a restaurant, but as... He was still unable to articulate the word father. It seemed like a designation he had not truly deserved. Kate started to explain, "It's not that simple," but her words were cut short by a soft voice coming from behind her. "Mother, could this be him?" Ethan stood there, the chess championship medal draped around his neck, his dark eyes filled with intensity and curiosity. Emma trailed closely, brimming with an almost palpable energy that seemed ready to burst forth. Kate's meticulously built barriers started to fall apart as her children, along with their offspring, awaited a response. Marcus stood still as Kate lowered herself to meet his gaze, her professional demeanor set aside in a moment of pure nurturing instinct. "Absolutely, my dear. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Marcus Reynolds." "He is." She looked up at Marcus, a lifetime of intricate feelings exchanged in that glance. "He is your father." Emma, always eager to take action as her mother had noted before, moved ahead. "Were you truly unaware of our existence? It seems that's the impression I got from the way you glanced at us earlier." Your expression mirrored that of Mom's when she's genuinely taken aback, much like the time we were accepted into the advanced program at school. The straightforwardness of the inquiry, presented with an almost naive insight, almost unraveled Marcus entirely. He knelt down too, aligning himself with them in the same way Kate had. "No, I didn't know," he confessed, his voice thick with feeling. "Yet if I had..." He gazed at Kate, his eyes silently seeking her approval to proceed. She gave a barely noticeable nod, and he redirected his attention to the twins. "Had I been aware of your existence, the course of events would have taken a different turn." It wasn't a blame directed at Kate, but rather an admission of his own shortcomings. "I wandered off course for a time, concentrating on the misguided forms of achievement. However, witnessing the two of you at this moment, he found himself needing to take a moment to collect his thoughts. Your greatness surpasses any accomplishment I could have envisioned." Ethan observed him with a focus that Marcus saw reflected in his own gaze. "My mother mentioned that you assist businesses in improving," he said thoughtfully. "You repair what is damaged and restore its proper function." The boy traced the medal on his chest with a contemplative air. "Do you believe that some things that are broken cannot be repaired?" The inquiry resonated deeply, its significance extending well beyond the mere arrangement of letters, leaving a profound mark on Marcus's very essence. He was on the verge of replying when he caught sight of Kate wiping away tears, making an effort to conceal them from the twins. In that moment, he perceived not merely his ex-wife, but a mother who had shouldered the weight of their shared history in solitude for 7 long years. Marcus locked eyes with his son, fully aware of the significance of this moment. The most crucial matters can always be resolved, Ethan. At times, it requires a blend of time, patience, and the courage to take that leap. He cast a quick look at Kate before proceeding. The key lies in identifying what genuinely matters before the moment slips away. Emma, who had been unusually silent, suddenly exclaimed, "We're staying at this hotel too." Mom arranged for us to have a suite due to Ethan's chest issue. Which floor are you currently situated on? We are currently at 12. Her enthusiasm broke through the dense emotional haze like a ray of sunlight piercing through darkened skies. Emma, Kate cautioned softly, yet Marcus noticed the faint curve of her smile. Their daughter's knack for alleviating tension brought back memories of Kate in their early days, when she'd interrupt his stress-fueled work cycles with unexpected ideas for late-night ice cream outings. I'm actually on the top floor, Marcus said, observing the way Emma's eyes grew wide with surprise. The view of the city is truly remarkable. He paused for a moment before adding, would you care to take a look at it? Everyone here? The final segment was aimed at Kate, a gesture of reconciliation reaching across 7 years of quietude. Kate's inner turmoil was evident in her expression, the fierce guardian clashing with the one who had once placed her faith in him entirely. At last, she inquired, what are your plans for the press conference scheduled for tomorrow? I noticed the announcements. I canceled it, Marcus stated plainly. The twins may not grasp the weight of this statement, yet Kate certainly did. Marcus Reynolds was known for never canceling press conferences. Her astonishment was evident. Is that possible, Mom? Kindly? Emma was nearly bursting with excitement now. I'm curious to explore the aesthetics of a penthouse, and Ethan is ready to demonstrate his chess strategies. Is that correct? She gently prodded her brother, who had been silently taking in the whole interaction. Ethan gazed at Marcus, a flicker of cautious hope in his eyes. Have you ever played chess? The inquiry held a significance that transcended its seemingly straightforward phrasing. Marcus recalled the moments spent with his father, imparting the nuances of the game, a rare bright spot in a childhood largely filled with lessons about business. Marcus confessed that he used to play quite a lot, although he thinks he might be a bit out of practice now. I would be eager to discover some of your techniques. The grin that spread across Ethan's face shifted him from a focused academic to an enthusiastic child in a heartbeat. Kate glanced at her watch, a fidgety habit that Marcus recalled vividly. The hour is growing late, and you both have the robotics competition on the morrow? Her voice faded as she encountered two identical looks of dismay directed at her. The familiar expressions she had observed numerous times during client meetings when the opposing counsel brought their children to the office. The competition isn't until 11, Ethan noted with a sense of reason. Have we really already completed dinner? He cast a quick look at his sister, who responded with an eager nod. In that fleeting moment of unspoken connection, Marcus envisioned the potential of what he and Kate might have become, what they ought to have been, as partners in parenting. For just a moment, Kate agreed, her tone gentle. However, please allow us a moment. She led Marcus a short distance away, ensuring the twins couldn't overhear them. Questions are bound to arise. A multitude of them. They will seek answers that we may not be prepared to provide. Marcus acknowledged her words, grasping the caution they conveyed. I understand. However, Kate. He hesitated, selecting his phrases with precision. 7 years of questions have slipped by me. I want to begin tackling the questions I can, even if they pose a challenge. A subtle change flickered across Kate's face. Recognition of the man she had fallen for, perhaps, surfacing from behind the corporate mask. As they strolled toward the elevator, Emma unexpectedly intertwined her small hand with Marcus's. The unassuming act almost made his heart skip a beat. She gazed up at him with the intensity of Kate's eyes and inquired, did you truly create your entire company on your own? That's what the article Ethan came across indicated. He keeps it stored on his tablet, meticulously saving all things related to business. Ethan felt a warm rush at his sister's revelation but chose not to refute it. Instead, he retrieved the tablet from his backpack, swiftly accessing a folder titled Future Business Ideas. The scene constricted Marcus's throat. Unbeknownst to him, his son had been treading the same path all along. As Marcus opened the door, the penthouse suite exuded a different aura, reshaped by the arrival of his newfound family. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she approached the expansive windows, her hands eagerly pressing against the glass. Meanwhile, Ethan absorbed every detail with a careful and deliberate gaze. Kate lingered at the edge, arms crossed, a stance that Marcus recalled from board meetings when she was ready to voice her dissent. From this vantage point, the entire city unfolds before you, Emma exclaimed, her breath misting the glass. Mom, look, you can see our old apartment building from here. The words struck Marcus with the force of a physical blow. Their former apartment, he had purchased it post-divorce, unable to release the memories it contained. He was unaware that Kate and the twins resided nearby. Ethan had already taken his place at the chess table by the window, carefully arranging the pieces with deliberate and exacting motions. This is a truly exquisite set, he remarked, gently gliding his fingers across the intricately hand-carved marble pieces. The knights, however, deviate from the standard set by tournaments. It belonged to my father, Marcus clarified, stepping forward to join him. He showed me how to play on this set. The recollection of those infrequent tranquil moments spent with his father emerged. It was a rare moment when the exacting James Reynolds displayed patience instead of his usual critique. Kate observed them from close to the door, her face revealing a tangled web of feelings. Marcus locked eyes with her, a silent recognition of the significance of this moment passing between them. Their son occupied the same chess table where Marcus had devoted endless hours to devising business strategies. Yet this time, instead of corporate maneuvers, it would bear witness to a long-awaited father-son bond, 7 years in the making. Emma suddenly declared, still leaning against the window, "Mom says you work too much." She informed Aunt Sarah that this is the reason you were unaware of our existence. However, my friend Madison's father is also quite busy, yet he still makes it to her recitals. The pure observation bore the burden of countless unvoiced inquiries. Marcus sensed the tension radiating from Kate across the room. Yet before she could step in, he chose to speak his truth. Your mother had a point. I put in an excessive amount of effort. I believed I was creating something significant, yet I overlooked what was genuinely precious. He fixed his gaze on Kate as he pressed on. Some individuals grasp their lessons only when it's too late. I sincerely hope I'm not included in that group. Ethan completed the arrangement of the chess pieces, ensuring that each one was impeccably positioned. Do you want to play? He inquired softly. I can reveal the approach that led to victory in the championship. The olive branch was extended with a quiet grace that made Marcus pause, swallowing hard before he could find the words to reply. It would be a privilege, he remarked as he settled into the chair across from his son. Before anything else, I'm eager to learn more about the robotics competition happening tomorrow. Are you both in competition? The question pulled Emma away from the window, her enthusiasm unmistakable. We created a search and rescue robot, she exclaimed, plopping down onto the plush sofa next to Kate. Ethan handled the programming while I focused on designing the mechanical arms. It has the ability to ascend stairs and more. Her pride radiated, eliciting a smile even from Kate. They've been toiling away at it for months, Kate remarked gently. The contest is a component of MIT's Young Innovators Initiative. The pride in her voice resonated clearly, and Marcus experienced another wave of regret for all the moments he had overlooked. As Ethan delved into his opening chess strategy, Marcus caught sight of Emma retrieving an item from her backpack, a well-loved notebook adorned with intricate mechanical sketches. She noticed his gaze and clarified, "These are my innovative concepts. Mom claims my imaginative flair comes from you, while my knack for organization is inherited from her." A fleeting remark triggered a recollection, Kate meticulously sorting through his disordered business proposals during their inaugural year of marriage, transforming his imaginative ideas into tangible strategies. He had always claimed they formed the ideal partnership. Observing their children at this moment, he recognized the flawless combination of both parents, shaped and cherished even in his absence. "Father," Ethan's voice wavered, as if he were experimenting with the word for the very first time. "The next step is yours to take." The term father lingered in the atmosphere, transforming everything. Marcus locked eyes with Kate from across the room, perceiving in her gaze a mirror of his own inner chaos, fear, hope, and the tantalizing hint of possibility intertwined. If you're finding this video enjoyable and crave more content of this nature, Don't forget to click that subscribe button and activate the notification bell. In this manner, you'll ensure you don't overlook any of the incredible narratives we have on the horizon. Your encouragement truly aids in the channel's expansion and allows us to continue delivering the content you enjoy. Thanks a lot. The term father appeared to alter the ambience in the penthouse suite. Emma lifted her gaze from her notebook, observing her brother and father with keen interest as they engaged in their chess match. Kate approached the window, allowing the city lights to mask the tumult of emotions flickering across her face. Marcus gazed at the chess board, perceiving not merely the pieces, but the profound burden that a single word encompassed. Ethan whispered, indicating the trap he had meticulously crafted, "Checkmate in 3 moves, unless you perceive something I might be overlooking." The humility in his voice, reminiscent of Marcus's own early chess days, caused a tightening in his chest. His son had not only received his appearance but also his keen intellect, his meticulous evaluation of every potential outcome. "No, I see it now," Marcus confessed, examining the board with sincere appreciation. "That's absolutely fantastic, Ethan. You orchestrated that 6 moves ago, didn't you?" The boy's satisfied grin spoke volumes. From the couch, Emma let out a playful sigh, her eyes rolling in a light-hearted manner. She explained that he does that to everyone. Mom is the only one who occasionally spots his traps ahead of time. She claims it's due to the years she observed you orchestrating business deals in that manner. The offhand remark caused both Marcus and Kate to pause for a brief moment. Kate was the first to recover, shifting from the window to take a seat next to Emma. As the hours slipped away, she murmured gently, her tone lacking the urgency it once held. "It's essential for both of you to recharge before the competition tomorrow." However, Emma was already retrieving her tablet, excited to share her robot designs with Marcus. "Just 5 more minutes," she implored, her expression reminiscent of Kate's compelling courtroom demeanor, causing Marcus to stifle a grin. "I'd like to share my servo motor modifications with Dad." The term Dad slipped from her mouth effortlessly, as though it had been a part of her vocabulary forever. Kate's resolve clearly began to falter. She gazed at Marcus, a hint of vulnerability flickering across her expression. "They've never stayed up this late before a competition," she remarked, yet her tone suggested uncertainty rather than certainty. Marcus suggested with caution, "I could come tomorrow, to the contest, if that is acceptable." He maintained a calm demeanor, yet his heart raced with anticipation. "I'm eager to witness this robot in action." Ethan, having been silently rearranging the chess pieces, suddenly lifted his gaze with intensity. "Is that so? Would you be willing to come?" The optimism in his tone made Marcus understand the significance of his seemingly simple offer. "However, what about your organization? Mom mentioned that you have significant meetings each day." Marcus shifted away from the chess table, kneeling before his son. "Ethan, direct your gaze towards me." He lingered until those intense, shadowy eyes locked onto his. "Nothing, no gathering, no agreement, no organization holds greater significance than being present tomorrow. I have already missed far too much. I want to ensure I catch every detail. Do you truly promise?" Emma's voice chimed in, taking on a sudden gravity. Madison's dad frequently makes commitments to attend events, yet he often delegates the responsibility to his assistant instead. The pain in her voice, even for a friend, revealed a fear that Marcus had to confront. He shifted his focus to encompass her in his look.
Yes, sur you.
"And what about Emma?" He held his breath until her gaze met his. "I always keep my word. That's no longer the case." The final remark was aimed at Kate, who observed the interaction with shimmering eyes. "The competition begins at 11, Kate finally announced. "The Johnson Athletic Center at MIT. They will participate in the junior division." She took a moment before softly revealing, "Their team goes by the name Double Trouble Robotics." The mention elicited a grin from Marcus. It was an ideal fit for them. As Kate collected the twins' belongings, Marcus observed Ethan meticulously folding a sheet of paper and tucking it away in his pocket. "What is that?" he inquired softly. Ethan paused for a moment before drawing it back out. The article on Reynolds Corporation bore the marks of its history, creased from countless folds and unfolds. He confessed that he had it since last year. I enjoyed learning about your journey in transforming the company and enhancing its success. I had no idea you were, well, Yet, I envisioned a day when I might embark on a similar journey. The heartfelt confession, infused with genuine hope, struck Marcus with a profound realization. As he focused on crafting a corporate legacy, his son had been silently nurturing a desire to tread the same path. As the twins collected their belongings, Emma's tablet slipped from her grasp, crashing to the floor with a loud clatter. The display illuminated, showcasing a backdrop that left Marcus momentarily breathless. A youthful version of himself and Kate at their law school graduation, both radiating joy at the camera. Emma swiftly grabbed the tablet, yet the moment lingered in the atmosphere. She explained, a sudden shyness overtaking her, that she had found it online, while I was researching my father's business. Mom keeps a similar picture tucked away in her desk drawer at home. At times, I noticed her gaze lingering on it. Kate's quick gasp revealed the reality behind their daughter's statement. Marcus recalled that day vividly, both of them brimming with dreams and promises, before the weight of corporate ambition and forgotten anniversaries began to wear away at their foundation. With a burst of laughter, Kate captured the moment, pulling him in for a selfie. He spoke gently, his words carrying a deeper significance for Kate than for the twins, reflecting on their youth. Mom says that was when you were happiest, Ethan noted, his awareness slicing through the haze of nostalgia. Prior to the company's significant growth. He paused, then added with a sudden clarity, is that the reason you put in so many hours? To attempt to experience that joy once more? The question struck Marcus with the force of a tangible impact. Truly, wisdom often comes from the youngest among us. He noticed Kate shift to intervene, to shield him from their son's unintentional psychological acuity. Yet he raised a hand to stop her. It's fine, he said to her before shifting his attention to Ethan. At times, grown-ups seek joy in the least likely of spots. Achievement does not equate to joy. I came to understand that lesson far too late. Emma, feeling the weight of the atmosphere, instinctively took action to uplift the spirits. You've discovered us at last. And we're definitely more exciting than some dull, traditional business, right? Her radiant smile embodied Kate, thawing something icy within Marcus's heart. Indeed you are, he conceded, his voice thick with feeling. Both of you are. He gazed at Kate, recognizing the shared comprehension reflected in her eyes. Their offspring embodied the finest qualities of each parent, a living testament to the dreams they had once envisioned together. I have a meeting room reserved at MIT tomorrow morning, Kate announced unexpectedly, catching everyone off guard. The children will conduct final testing on their robots ahead of the competition. If that is your desire. Her voice faded, leaving the invitation suspended in the atmosphere. At what hour? Marcus was poised to grab his phone, prepared to rearrange his entire agenda if necessary. That might be a bit premature considering your timetable. I will be there, he interjected. I desire to experience it all, evaluating the competition, every aspect of it. He glanced at the twins, their eyes sparkling with barely contained excitement as they observed the unfolding exchange. Is that all right with you as well? Absolutely. Emma sprang lightly on her toes. Your assistance in calibrating the servo motors would be greatly appreciated. I came across information about your company's work in precision engineering, and I'm currently facing challenges with the calculations for arm rotation. Emma, Kate interjected softly, take a breath, darling. Yet, she wore a smile, a genuine one that illuminated her eyes. It was a look Marcus hadn't encountered in 7 years, and it struck him with a wave of nostalgia for what he had longed for. Ethan, always the pragmatic type, was already retrieving his competition notebook. This evening, we will demonstrate the fundamental functions of the robot, ensuring you grasp what you'll observe tomorrow. The system is quite intricate. He halted abruptly, filled with doubt. Unless you have too much on your plate? The inquiry resonated with the memories of every occasion when Marcus had prioritized everything else. Kate, family, and all else over his work. Yet that was the former Marcus. The individual in this penthouse suite, enveloped by the family he had only just discovered, was transformed. "I have all the time in the world," he said with conviction, settling down next to his son. As he performed the action, he locked eyes with Kate, noticing a blend of apprehension and optimism in her gaze. They faced a lengthy journey ahead, filled with years of pain to confront. Yet in this moment, witnessing the joy on Ethan's face as he unveiled his notebook and listening to Emma's enthusiastic discussion about servo motors, it felt like the dawn of something truly valuable. While the twins enthusiastically detailed their robot's features, Kate slipped into the penthouse's kitchen area, her keen observational instincts sharpening as she absorbed every detail around her. The vacant coffee cups, the neglected room service menu, the laptop encircled by contract papers, all stand as testament to Marcus's isolated existence. He observed her gaze and decided to pursue, while Emma and Ethan remained absorbed in their technical conversation. "You haven't changed," Kate said softly, picking up one of the coffee cups, continuing to push forward fueled by coffee and sheer willpower. Yet her words lacked any sharpness, merely offering a soft acknowledgement of well-known patterns. "Some things have shifted," Marcus responded, observing their children gather around Ethan's notebook. "Kate, I want you to understand, if I had any inkling?" He fell silent as she raised a hand. "I understand," she replied with a straightforward tone. "Your expression reveals it each time you gaze upon them. That's the Marcus I recall from our days in law school. The individual who valued more than merely the upcoming significant transaction." With a delicate touch, she placed the cup down. "However, it's important for you to grasp this as well." He paused, observing her as she collected her thoughts, familiar with the routine she followed before making her case from their days in the courtroom. "If you're going to be part of their lives, and I realize now that keeping you away would cause more harm than good, it must be a complete commitment. There will be no sending help to school events, no checking emails during family dinners, and no missing birthdays for board meetings. As I did with you," he acknowledged softly. The weight of their past errors lingered in the air, palpable and heavy. "They're already so much like you," Kate said, her voice heavy with feeling. "Ethan, possessing a keen strategic mind, and Emma, embodying an innovative spirit. I encounter you in them daily, and it fills me with dread as I recall how that remarkable intensity of yours morphed into fixation. They truly merit more than that." From the living room, Emma's voice soared with enthusiasm. "Hey Dad, check out this design modification I came up with." The term father still sparked a surge of emotion in both of them. Marcus locked eyes with Kate, allowing her to perceive the depth of his genuine intent. "I'm no longer the man who prioritized a merger over your father's funeral," he said softly. "Witnessing them this evening, realizing what I've overlooked, it has transformed everything. The organization, the agreements, the legacy I believed I was creating. This pales in significance to what truly matters." Kate observed him intently, her extensive legal training dissecting each nuance of his expression. "Show me," she finally said. "Not for me, but for them. Be present tomorrow. Stay engaged. Become the father they truly deserve." He assured me that he would be. Then, with a subtle smile, "I may require a bit of guidance. I find myself 7 years late to the parenting journey." Before Kate could reply, Ethan's voice cut in. "Mom?" Emma's attempting to reprogram the robot's base code. The well-known irritation of an older sibling, just 12 minutes apart, as Emma had gleefully declared earlier, brought a smile to both their faces. As they returned to the living room, Marcus caught sight of Kate wiping away a tear. The gesture brought back memories of a moment 7 years prior, when she had done the same while signing their divorce papers. Yet these tears carried a unique weight. Not a conclusion, but maybe an inception. "All right, you," Kate declared, her mother's voice resonating with authority. "The moment has truly arrived to depart. Tomorrow promises to be quite an eventful day." She raised a hand to silence their objections. "The robot will remain in place come morning, and your father will be present as well." She cast a fleeting look at Marcus. "Isn't that so?" He confirmed at 8 a.m. sharp. "I will take care of breakfast." The smile he received from all three of them filled his heart with warmth. After 7 long years, his penthouse transformed from a mere resting spot between meetings into a space that held the promise of becoming a true home. As they collected their belongings, Emma wrapped her arms around Marcus in a spontaneous embrace. "I'm so relieved we discovered you," she murmured, then quickly returned to Kate's side. Ethan extended a more subdued handshake, yet his eyes sparkled with the same joy as his sister's. As he stood in his doorway, observing them approach the elevator, Marcus came to the profound realization that his life had transformed completely within just a few hours. The press conference he had called off, the agreements he had delayed, all of it paled in comparison to the anticipation of the dawn that awaited him. If you're finding this video enjoyable and crave more content of this nature, don't forget to click that subscribe button and activate the notification bell. In that manner, you'll be sure to catch all the incredible tales we have in store. Your encouragement truly aids in the channel's expansion and allows us to continue delivering the content you enjoy. Thanks a lot. Once they departed, Marcus approached the window that Emma had occupied moments before, placing his hand against the cool glass. The city lights shimmered in a haze as he reflected on all the moments that had slipped away. First steps, first words, the initial days of school. Yet, beyond the significant milestones he had overlooked, it was the little details that he truly longed for. Morning chats, assistance with assignments, tales at night, the simple moments that forged connections between parent and child. His phone vibrated, yet another notification from the board regarding the cancellation of tomorrow's press conference. For the first time in his career, Marcus chose to leave it unanswered. Instead, he opened his calendar app and started removing meetings, freeing up his schedule for the upcoming days. The empire was patient. He had greater priorities to construct now. On his desk, amidst the piles of contracts and merger documents, rested Ethan's chess medal. It was left behind by his son, thoughtfully positioned beside the marble chess set. He had said it with that serious smile, "So you can bring it tomorrow." A seemingly modest act, yet it bore the profound significance of trust, hope, and potential. Marcus grasped the medal, recalling the pride with which Ethan had displayed it. His son, a chess champion with a penchant for exploring business practices in his leisure time. His daughter, a brilliant mind in engineering, always carried his photo on her tablet. They had blossomed into remarkable individuals in his absence, all due to Kate's steadfast commitment and resilience. He pondered Kate's words in the kitchen. She worried that his drive could harm the twins just as it had harmed her. Her caution was justified. She had every reason to safeguard them. Yet, she was justified in offering him this opportunity, this glimmer of hope for atonement. Approaching his desk, Marcus powered up his laptop. Rather than reviewing market reports or acquisition proposals, he started to type, "Dear Board of Directors, I am writing to inform you of some important changes." The words came effortlessly as he detailed his choice to withdraw from daily tasks, to assign greater responsibilities, to focus on what was genuinely important. Upon completing the email, Marcus caught sight of his reflection in the window. The silver strands in his hair remained unchanged, the familiar stress lines etched around his eyes still present, yet there was an unmistakable shift in his demeanor. The burden of relentless aspiration, of never quite achieving a sense of success, had been released. In its stead was something more uplifting, radiant, filled with promise. Tomorrow morning, he would gather with his children for some exciting robot testing. He would observe their contests, celebrate their successes, embody the father figure they truly needed. Perhaps, in time, he and Kate might discover a path to mend past hurts, to create something fresh from the remnants of their former lives. Success, Marcus came to understand, transcended merger deals and stock prices. It wasn't discovered in luxurious penthouse suites or during press conferences. Genuine achievement resided in Emma's heartfelt embrace, in Ethan's thoughtful chess strategies, in Kate's openness to offer him another opportunity. It was in the quiet instances, the exchanged glances, the hope for what lay ahead. The evening deepened, yet Marcus lingered at the window, observing the bustling city beneath him. Out in the world, his children were likely preparing for sleep, filled with anticipation for the competition that awaited them the next day. His family. The term resonated with an intriguing blend of unfamiliarity and undeniable correctness. After 7 years of crafting an empire of wealth, he unearthed a different kind of richness in just one evening. The kind that transcended monetary value, existing instead in the invaluable realms of love, trust, and the grace of second chances. Tomorrow marks a fresh start, not only for him but for everyone involved. Ultimately, the most significant accomplishments in life are not those that capture the spotlight or drive market values up. It's in those instances we prioritize love instead of ambition, family rather than wealth, and find the bravery to acknowledge our errors before the opportunity slips away. At times, the most significant agreement we forge is the one we establish with our own emotions. If this story has resonated with you and you wish to show your support for the channel, please think about using the Super Thanks button below. Your support enables us to craft more impactful narratives and ensures that these stories continue to flow. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share this video with anyone who could benefit from this important reminder about what really counts in life. United, we can share more narratives that resonate deeply and transform lives. We appreciate your presence on this journey with us.
The city was drowning in darkness, rain pouring down relentlessly, each droplet shimmering under the dim glow of flickering streetlights. The narrow alleys twisted like a labyrinth, filled with shadows that swallowed the lost and the damned. Leonardo Leo Moretti ran through the rain-soaked streets, one hand pressed against his side where a bullet had torn through flesh. Blood seeped into his black coat, but he had no time to stop. Behind him, footsteps echoed. His pursuers were close. "Hit me that way," a voice barked through the storm. Leo gritted his teeth, forcing himself forward despite the searing pain. He had survived worse. He had built his empire from blood and fire, but tonight, the hunter had become the hunted. As he turned sharply into a narrow alley, his vision blurred. His strength was draining fast. He needed to disappear, to find shelter, or he would not make it through the night. Then, Through the haze of rain and agony, neon lights flickered in the distance. St. Clair Medical Center, a hospital, the last place someone like him should step into. But he had no choice. Leo staggered forward, each step heavier than the last. Just as his knees buckled, a figure emerged from the hospital's back entrance. Dr. Isabel Hayes had just finished a grueling shift, stepping outside to clear her mind. The cold air bit into her skin, but exhaustion clung heavier than the night itself. Then she saw him, a man, collapsed near the hospital gates, drenched in blood and rain, and he wasn't moving. Isabel's instincts took over in an instant. She rushed forward, her hands trembling slightly as she checked for signs of life. His pulse, weak but still there, his breathing, shallow, uneven. And then, as she pressed her hand against his soaked shirt, she felt it. Warm, sticky blood, seeping through fabric. A gunshot wound. "We need a stretcher, now!" she shouted toward the hospital entrance. Nurses scrambled as they rushed to assist her, lifting the unconscious man onto the stretcher. But even in his semi-conscious state, his body reacted on pure instinct. His hand shot up, grasping her wrist with surprising strength. Isabel froze. His grip was firm, rough, yet warm. Even in the depths of unconsciousness, he clung onto something. Onto her. By the time they wheeled him into the emergency room, his grip finally loosened, his body surrendering to the darkness. Under the harsh glare of surgical lights, Isabel cut through the blood-soaked fabric of his shirt, and what she saw made her breath hitch. Scars. Countless scars. They crisscrossed his body, old wounds layered over new ones, each one a silent testament to a past carved in violence. These weren't the marks of an ordinary man. This was a man who had fought wars, perhaps not on battlefields, but in the shadows. Heart rate is stable, but he's lost a dangerous amount of blood, a nurse reported. "Prepare for a transfusion," Isabel ordered, her voice steady despite the unease settling in her chest. The surgery stretched on for over 2 hours, every second critical. But finally, the last bullet fragment was removed. He had survived. But as Isabel stitched his wounds, a question burned at the back of her mind. Who was this man? And what kind of life had led him here, to the brink of death, in a place where he clearly did not belong? The first thing Leo noticed when he woke up was the blinding white light above him. His entire body ached, pain radiating from his side, but his mind remained sharp. Years of surviving in the underworld had trained him to wake up alert, ready. Then he saw her. A woman stood at the foot of his hospital bed, arms crossed, observing him with an unreadable expression. She didn't flinch, didn't look afraid, just calm. "You're awake," she stated. Leo's gaze flickered over her. Dark hair neatly tied back, piercing green eyes, a professional stance. A doctor. "You saved me," he rasped, his voice hoarse from dehydration. "I was just doing my job," she replied coolly. Leo smirked, a slow, knowing curve of his lips. Interesting. For the next few days, Isabel checked on him regularly, treating his wounds with detached efficiency. Or at least, that's what she told herself. But some days, she found herself lingering just a little longer than necessary, watching the way his sharp blue eyes followed her every movement. She ignored the way her pulse quickened when he smirked at her, the way her stomach twisted in something suspiciously close to anticipation when she walked into his room. She didn't pry. She didn't show fear, and that annoyed him. Leo Moretti was used to two types of people, those who feared him and those who wanted something from him. Isabel Hayes, she was neither. "You don't seem afraid of me," he remarked one afternoon as she changed his bandages. "Should I be?" she shot back without missing a beat. Leo chuckled. This woman intrigued him more than she should, and so the game began. The moment he was discharged, Leo made it his personal mission to unsettle Isabel Hayes. It started with small things, showing up at the hospital for the most ridiculous reasons. "Dr. Hayes, I think my stitches need checking." "You were discharged yesterday," she deadpanned. "What can I say? I miss your company," he smirked. Then came the flowers. Dozens of red roses delivered to the hospital every morning. "I don't want them," Isabel told the receptionist, handing the bouquet back. Day 2, another bouquet. Day 3, 2 bouquets. Day 4, a handwritten note attached. "The flowers aren't as beautiful as you, but they'll have to do for now. L.M." Isabel sighed. This was going to be a problem. By the end of the week, Isabel was exhausted. Long shifts, back-to-back surgeries, and Leo Moretti's relentless persistence were taking a toll on her. She barely had time to breathe, let alone deal with his antics. But today was different. From the moment she woke up, her body felt heavy. A dull headache throbbed at her temples, her limbs weak. But Isabel wasn't the kind of person who let exhaustion slow her down. She had patients to care for. So she popped a fever reducer, pushed through her morning routine, and ignored the way her vision blurred every now and then. By afternoon, she was struggling. Her hands trembled slightly as she prepared for surgery. Cold sweat formed at her brow, but she gritted her teeth. "Just a little more," she told herself. But as she stepped out of the operating room, her balance wavered, and someone caught her before she could fall. A firm grip. Familiar. Too familiar. "You're sick," Leo's deep voice rumbled near her ear. Isabel blinked, trying to focus. Why was he here? "I'm fine," she muttered, trying to pull away. Leo didn't let go. His grip was strong, steady. "No, you're not," he said, frustration lacing his tone. Before she could protest, he scooped her up effortlessly, ignoring the startled gasps from the nurses around them. "Leo, put me down," she snapped. "You have 2 options, Doc," he smirked. "Walk to your car, or I carry you out." She glared at him. The bastard was enjoying this. But she was too weak to fight, so for the first time in forever, Isabel let someone take care of her. Leo Moretti never stayed in one place too long. His world thrived on movement, always looking over his shoulder, always staying one step ahead of the people who wanted him dead. But here he was, sitting in Isabel Hayes' apartment, watching over her like a damn bodyguard. She had fallen asleep almost immediately, the fever finally pulling her under. Leo had planned to leave once she was settled, but somehow he stayed. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel the urge to run. But peace never lasted long in his world. His phone vibrated, an unknown number. Leo's jaw clenched as he read the message. "The doctor seems important to you, Moretti. Should we pay her a visit?" A cold rage settled deep in his chest. They had found her. His grip tightened around the phone, his other hand unconsciously balling into a fist. This was exactly why he never let people get close. Because the moment they did, they became targets. Leo stood abruptly, running a hand through his hair. He had 2 choices. Take Isabel and disappear, but that would mean dragging her into his world, or cut ties, walk away, keep her safe. His fingers curled around his phone, knuckles turning white. He already knew the answer. By morning, Isabel was feeling better. The fever had broken, and though she was still weak, she noticed something was different. Leo was quiet, distant. She frowned. Where was the teasing? The usual smug remarks? "You're leaving, aren't you?" she asked, her voice sharp. Leo exhaled, leaning against the doorway. "I shouldn't have stayed this long." Something in her chest tightened. Isabel crossed her arms, forcing herself to meet his gaze. "Then go," she snapped, but this time her voice lacked its usual sharpness. For a split second, something flickered in Leo's eyes. Hesitation. Regret. It made her stomach clench, made something inside her scream at her to stop him. But she didn't, because she wasn't sure what she wanted more, to push him away or to beg him to stay. Leo's jaw tensed. He had expected anger, but he didn't expect hurt. Her green eyes darkened, not with fury, but with something far worse. Betrayal. A silent plea, unspoken but deafening. He could feel the weight of it pressing down on him, suffocating, making it harder to walk away. His fingers twitched at his side, resisting the urge to reach for her one last time. Just one more touch, one more moment. but that was a luxury he couldn't afford. So, he turned. And with every step he took away from her, it felt like he was bleeding all over again. Swallowing the bitter taste in his mouth, Leo forced himself to turn away. Each step felt like walking through fire. And when the door finally closed behind him, he realized this was the first time in his life that he had truly lost. And for the first time in his life, leaving felt like a mistake. 3 months. That was how long it had been since Leo Moretti vanished from Isabel Hayes' life. She told herself she didn't care, that he was just a temporary disturbance. But then why did the hospital feel emptier without him? Why did she find herself glancing at the hallway, half expecting to see him walk in with that infuriating smirk? Why, when she finally allowed herself a moment of stillness at night, did her mind always wander back to him? But every time she walked past the hospital entrance, every time a stranger with dark hair and sharp eyes entered the ER, her heart betrayed her. Then, one night, everything changed. The emergency doors burst open with force, shouts filling the air. "We need a doctor, now!" A group of men dressed in black stormed into the hospital, carrying a blood-soaked figure on a stretcher. Isabel's breath caught. No, this wasn't real. But the blood staining the hospital floor was real. The limp body on the stretcher was real. The way her knees nearly buckled was real. Her fingers curled into fists, nails digging into her palms. Leo? The name tore from her lips like a scream, raw and broken, before she was running, shoving past nurses, ignoring the pounding in her chest. She had spent 3 months trying to forget him, and now she was about to lose him all over again. His face was pale, his body still, blood soaking through his once white shirt, turning it deep crimson. There was so much blood. "Gunshot wound, critical condition," one of the men barked. Isabel barely heard him. The hospital lights blurred, her chest tightening. "This isn't real. This can't be real." "Dr. Hayes, we need you." Her hands trembled. She couldn't do this. Then suddenly, a weak grip. Leo's fingers barely curled around her wrist. It was faint, but it was there. His eyelids fluttered open, his blue eyes hazy with pain, and then, through cracked lips, he uttered the words that shattered her heart. "I always loved you." And then his hand slipped away. The beeping monitors turned erratic, his body went limp. "We're losing him." Isabel snapped back to reality. No. She refused to let this be the end. "Prep the OR, now," she shouted, her voice shaking. As Leo was rushed into surgery, Isabel followed, her heart pounding violently against her ribs. This time, she wouldn't let him go. This time, she would fight for him. The operating room was silent, except for the steady beeping of machines and the tense whispers of the surgical team. Isabel stood over Leo's unconscious body, her gloved hands stained with his blood. "Scalpel," she ordered, her voice firm despite the tremor in her chest. Every cut she made, every movement, was personal. She wasn't just saving a patient, she was saving the man who had left her, the man who had broken her heart, but the man she still couldn't let go. The bullet was deep, dangerously close to his heart. "Come on, Leo," she murmured under her breath. "Don't do this to me." Minutes stretched into hours, but finally, the last bullet fragment was removed. "Heart rate stabilizing," a nurse reported. Isabel exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. He had survived the surgery, but now it was up to him. Days passed. Leo remained unconscious. Isabel never left his side. She told herself it was just duty, that she was only doing what any doctor would. But the truth was she was terrified. Terrified that he might never wake up. One night she sat beside his bed, exhaustion weighing on her. She took his hand in hers, gripping it tightly. "Leo, you don't even know that I love you," she whispered. And then, his fingers twitched. Isabel froze. For a moment, she thought she had imagined it. Her breath caught in her throat, heart pounding so loudly it drowned out everything else. Then, a weak whisper followed. "Isabel?" Her entire body trembled. She had spent nights sitting beside him, whispering his name, begging him to come back. And now, he finally did. Leo's eyelids fluttered open, his gaze unfocused at first. Then, his vision cleared, and the first thing he saw was her. Isabel sat by his bedside, gripping his hand as if she had been holding on for dear life. "You're still here?" His voice was weak, but his eyes held something deeper. Relief. A shaky laugh escaped her lips, though her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Did you really think I'd let you die, you idiot?" Leo tried to smirk, but the pain made him wince. That was the moment he knew. He wasn't just fighting for his life. He was fighting for her. Days turned into weeks. Leo slowly regained his strength. Isabel never once left him. One evening, as he sat by the hospital window, staring at the city he had once ruled, he made a decision. "I'm leaving it all behind," he said quietly. Isabel turned to him, brows furrowed. "What?" "The mafia, the power, everything." He met her gaze, unwavering. "I don't need it anymore. I just need you." She studied him carefully, searching for any trace of doubt. But Leo Moretti had never been more certain of anything in his life. "Are you sure?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. A slow smile spread across his lips. "As long as you're with me, I'll do anything." And for the first time in a long time, Leo Moretti was finally free. Months passed. The once feared Leo Moretti was no longer a name whispered in the underworld. Instead, he was just Leo, a man rebuilding his life in a quiet coastal town with the woman who had saved him in more ways than one. Isabel continued her work as a doctor, opening a small clinic for the community. And Leo? He found purpose in helping street kids. Children who reminded him too much of his own past. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, they sat together on the beach, the waves rolling in lazily. Leo reached into his pocket, his fingers brushing against the small silver ring. It wasn't extravagant, it wasn't flashy, but it was meaningful. Taking a deep breath, he turned to Isabel. "I lost you once," he said, voice deep and steady. She looked at him, her soft smile illuminated by the golden light of dusk. "But in the end, you still came back." Leo exhaled a quiet chuckle. "This time, I want to make sure I never lose you again." Then, he dropped to one knee. Isabel's breath hitched. "I have nothing left," he murmured, voice rough with emotion. "No empire, no riches, no name worth remembering. Just me. Just a man who has spent his entire life in the dark, only to realize that you were the only light he ever needed." He exhaled shakily, eyes locking onto hers. "Marry me, Isabel. Let me spend the rest of my life proving that I was always meant to be yours." A tear slipped down her cheek, but this time it wasn't from pain. "Leo Moretti," she whispered, "I've been waiting for this question for a long time." She held out her hand, letting him slide the ring onto her finger. "My answer is yes." Their wedding wasn't extravagant. There were no luxury venues, no high-profile guests, just the people who truly mattered. The street kids Leo had helped, the patients Isabel had cared for, their closest friends. Isabel wore a simple white dress, her smile more radiant than any diamond, and Leo, in a beige suit, looked at her like she was the only thing that had ever mattered. "Are you sure about this?" Leo murmured as they stood before the priest. Isabel laughed, squeezing his hand. "Do you still not believe that I love you?" He leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. "I just wanted to hear you say it again." She met his gaze, unwavering. "Leo Moretti, I love you." And with that, the man who had once lived in the shadows finally found his forever. Not in power, not in fear, but in the steady rhythm of her heartbeat against his. And for the first time in his life, Leo Moretti was home. The Whitmore estate, with its towering marble columns and grand chandeliers, buzzed with activity. Staff hurried about, arranging every detail for the wedding scheduled to take place the next day, an event expected to be flawless in every way. But for Lyra Whitmore, it felt more like the sealing of her fate than a celebration. Standing in her bedroom, Lyra gazed absently out the window at the sprawling gardens below. Her family had spent decades building their vast fortune, but now it all teetered on the edge of collapse. Victor Langston, her fiancé, had been described by her father, Charles Whitmore, as the only chance to save the family's name and fortune. "We have no other choice," Charles had told her, his eyes heavy with worry but firm in resolve. "Victor is the only one willing to help us." Lyra had never felt at ease around Victor. In every meeting, his cold, calculating gaze sent chills down her spine. While he always appeared polite and charming in front of her family, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong with him. She clutched the silver necklace around her neck, the last gift from her mother before she passed away. "What would you do, Mom?" Lyra whispered to herself. But her mother wasn't there to answer. The commotion in the hallway snapped her back to reality. This wasn't her wedding. It was a transaction, a chess move she wanted no part of. Lyra knew that if she didn't act now, she would be trapped forever. The pre-wedding dinner was held in the grand hall of the Whitmore estate, where crystal chandeliers cast shimmering light across gilded walls. Guests chatted animatedly, laughter echoing throughout the room, but Lyra sat quietly in a corner, her hand gripping a glass of wine. Victor Langston stood at the center of the room, engaging a group of business associates. His perfectly tailored suit and charming smile masked the coldness that Lyra could sense in every one of his movements. To everyone else, Victor was the epitome of success, power, and generosity. But Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that he was playing a carefully constructed role. She hadn't intended to eavesdrop, but a low, measured tone in Victor's voice caught her attention. "The next girl needs to be transferred by the weekend," Victor said, his voice quiet but clear enough for Lyra to hear. She froze. The next girl? What was he talking about? A wave of unease washed over her, but she didn't dare ask. Her family relied too heavily on Victor, and any suspicion on her part could complicate an already fragile situation. The next morning, Lyra entered Victor's study to retrieve a few documents for the wedding preparations. While pulling open a drawer to find a pen, her eyes landed on a thick file tucked inside. She hesitated, but curiosity got the better of her. Inside the file was a photograph of a young girl, a face Lyra didn't recognize. Below the photo were strange notes, a name, a date, and a chilling line that read, "Transfer completed." Lyra's heart stopped. The photo, combined with what she had overheard the night before, began to piece together a terrifying story. Victor wasn't just a powerful businessman. He was hiding something much darker. Closing the drawer quickly, Lyra glanced around to ensure no one had seen her. She slipped the file into her bag, knowing she had just uncovered something that could change everything. That night, she stared at the file on her bed, a determined resolve forming in her mind. She didn't know where she would go, but one thing was certain. She had to leave, and she would not let Victor control her life. The faint glow of garden lights cast long shadows across the stone pathways of the Whitmore estate. Lyra moved cautiously, her small bag containing the file she had taken from Victor's study, evidence she didn't fully understand but knew was critical to her escape. As she neared the back gate, Lyra instinctively glanced around, listening for any sound. But just as she took another step forward, a deep voice called out from behind her. "What are you doing here?" Lyra turned to see a tall man in a security uniform. Her heart pounded as she stammered, "I was just taking a walk." The man raised an eyebrow, suspicion flickering in his eyes. "At this hour? You're Lyra Whitmore, aren't you? Victor Langston's fiancée?" Lyra didn't answer immediately, but the tension in her expression betrayed her. The man took a step closer, his tone turning firm. "You're trying to run, aren't you?" Before he could react further, Lyra acted on impulse. She grabbed his collar, pulled him down, and kissed him. The man froze, his eyes widening in shock, but before he could say a word, Lyra whispered urgently, "Don't shout. Please, I need to get out of here." He stared at her for a moment, silent. Then the sound of footsteps echoed in the distance, accompanied by another guard's voice. "Is someone there?" Lyra glanced nervously toward the approaching lights. The man in front of her finally spoke, but instead of shouting, he said, "Get down. Follow me." Hesitating only briefly, Lyra obeyed, trailing closely as he led her through a narrow passage behind the estate's fence. When they stopped in a secluded spot, the man turned to her, his voice low but firm. "My name is Theo Mercer. I'm not a guard. I'm here to investigate Victor Langston." Lyra stared at him in disbelief. "Investigate? Who are you?" Theo glanced at the bag she clutched tightly, his sharp eyes narrowing. "The file in your bag. I need it. But first, we need to get out of here." "How do I know you're not lying?" Lyra asked, her voice filled with doubt. Theo shrugged. "You can trust me, or go back and let Victor find you. Your choice." Lyra's mind raced. While she wasn't sure she could trust Theo, one thing was clear: going back was not an option. "Fine, but you have to tell me everything." "Once we're safe," Theo replied, pulling her to her feet. "Let's move." He guided her through a hidden path known only to him, leading to a waiting car. As they drove off, Lyra glanced back at the Whitmore estate one last time before it disappeared into the darkness. She knew this was the beginning of a dangerous journey, but it was also her only chance to reclaim her life. The next morning, as sunlight streamed into the Whitmore estate, an unusual tension filled the air. Lyra's room was empty, the bed untouched, and no one had seen her since the previous night. Victor Langston stood in his office, his piercing gaze fixed on the head of security. "She's gone?" Victor asked, his voice low but laced with menace. "Yes, sir, she's not in her room. One of the guards spotted her in the garden last night, but after that, no one knows where she went," the head of security replied, sweat beginning to bead on his forehead. Victor clenched his fists, his eyes blazing with fury. He knew Lyra hadn't just run away. The file from his drawer was also missing. "She took something from me," Victor muttered, then turned to issue his orders. "Bind her. Use every resource we have. I don't care where she is, but she must be brought back." In the car, speeding away from the estate, Lyra sat quietly, her hands clutching the bag tightly. Theo sat beside her, his eyes focused on the road ahead. "How long do you think it will take them to realize I'm gone?" Lyra asked, her voice still trembling from the escape. "He may have already found out," Theo said, his tone calm but firm. "Victor isn't the type to let things go. He'll mobilize everyone to find you." Lyra took a deep breath, looking out the window. "Why are you helping me? You don't even know who I am." Theo glanced at her briefly before replying. "I don't know you, but I know Victor. He's ruined too many lives, including my sister's. If you have something that can take him down, it's worth the risk." Back at the estate, Victor received an update from his security network. A camera at the side gate had captured footage of a car leaving around the time Lyra disappeared. Using the license plate, he quickly identified the car's owner, Theo Mercer. Victor smirked, but the smile was filled with malice. "So she has an accomplice," he said. "Theo Mercer? Let's see what game you're playing." He ordered his team to track the car while leveraging his connections to block any potential routes Lyra and Theo might use. As Theo's car reached the outskirts of the city, his phone buzzed with a message. A contact in his network had warned him that Victor had discovered their escape. "We have a problem," Theo said, his voice grave. "They know it's me. We need to change plans immediately." "Where do we go now?" Lyra asked, her worry evident. Theo turned the wheel sharply, heading down a narrow dirt road leading into a forested area. "I know a safe place, but we have to get there before they catch up." Lyra nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew this escape was just beginning, and Victor wouldn't stop until he got what he wanted. The car rolled down desolate roads, heading toward a remote area far from the city. Lyra stared out the window, feeling a sense of relief slowly replace the tension as the city lights faded into the distance. "Where are we going?" she finally asked, breaking the silence. "To a safe place," Theo replied, his hands steady on the wheel. "I have a base where Victor can't reach us." Over an hour later, the car stopped in front of what looked like an ordinary warehouse, nestled in a quiet forest. Theo stepped out and gestured for Lyra to follow. "You'll understand once we're inside." Inside the warehouse was a hidden door leading down to an underground bunker, equipped with advanced technology. Large screens displayed maps, data, and surveillance photos of Victor at past events. "This is where I've been investigating Victor," Theo explained, handing Lyra a glass of water. "I've been tracking him for years, but I've never had enough evidence to take him down." Lyra sat down, her eyes glued to the screens. "Why are you targeting Victor? Who are you really?" Theo took a seat across from her, his gaze filled with a mix of anger and pain. "My name is Theo Mercer. I'm not a security guard or a detective. I'm the heir to Mercer Holdings, one of the largest financial conglomerates." Lyra blinked in surprise. "Billionaire Theo Mercer?" Theo nodded. "Yes, but that doesn't matter. What matters is finding my sister, Sophia." He paused, as if the weight of his emotions was almost too much to bear. "Sophia was Victor's ex-girlfriend," Theo continued. "They met when she was in college. I didn't interfere even though something about him felt off, but everything changed after a trip Victor invited her on." Lyra listened intently, a sense of dread creeping over her as she watched Theo's expression. "Sophia never came back from that trip," Theo said, his voice steady but tinged with pain. "Victor claims she decided to stay abroad and start a new life, but I know my sister. She would never do that without telling me." "Do you have any proof?" Lyra asked. Theo shook his head, frustration evident on his face. "Not enough. Victor is meticulous. I've searched for every trace, but he's erased it all." Lyra glanced at the file in her bag. "Maybe this can help." Theo nodded, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. If that file contains anything tied to Victor, it could be the key to finding Sophia and bringing him down. But first, we need to make sure Victor doesn't find this place. Lyra looked at the screens, her heart heavy. She realized she wasn't just fighting for her freedom, but also helping Theo seek justice for his sister. Inside the secret base, the silence was broken only by the clicking of keys as Theo worked on his computer. Lyra sat beside him, the file open on the table in front of her. Her hands clenched tightly while her eyes remained fixed on the large screen displaying data about Victor. "We can't just hand this over to the police," Lyra said, her voice a mix of anxiety and determination. "Victor has too many connections. If we don't approach this the right way, he'll erase all the evidence and keep going like nothing happened." Theo nodded, his expression serious. "Exactly. He has allies in every sector, politicians, businessmen. We need to make this public, in front of everyone. If public opinion turns against him, no one can protect him." Lyra frowned. "But how? He won't let us get close that easily." Theo turned his monitor toward her, displaying an email invitation to an upcoming charity gala hosted by Victor. "Victor is holding a charity gala next week. It's the perfect opportunity to expose him in front of his supporters." Lyra stared at the email, determination flashing in her eyes. "So, what's the plan?" Leaning forward, Theo's voice was low but confident. "First, we need to access his network and back up all the data. If Victor finds out, he'll try to wipe everything, so we have to move fast." Lyra nodded. "And then, we make it public at the gala." "Exactly," Theo said. "But it can't just be raw data. We need it to be shocking enough that no one can ignore it. Photos, transactions, and, if possible, evidence of the girls he's trafficked." Lyra bit her lip, her gaze thoughtful. "But how do we get into the gala without being caught at the door?" Theo opened a drawer nearby and pulled out a set of identity-forgiving tools. "I have a way to get you in. You'll pose as a representative of a human rights organization. That will give you a legitimate reason to attend without drawing suspicion." "And what about you?" Lyra asked. "I'll be working from behind the scenes, controlling the security systems and ensuring the data goes live at the right moment," Theo replied, his voice steady. Lyra exhaled, feeling a mix of tension and resolve. "All right, but if the plan fails—" "If it fails, I'll make sure you're safe," Theo interrupted, his eyes unwavering. "I won't let Victor get to you." Lyra looked at him, sensing the sincerity in his words. "We can't fail," she said, her voice firm. The two of them worked late into the night, refining every detail of their plan. They knew that one mistake could unravel everything, but they also knew this was their only chance to take Victor down. Victor Langston's charity gala was held at the city's most luxurious hotel, with dazzling crystal chandeliers and elegantly decorated tables. The guests, powerful business leaders, journalists, and politicians gathered, eagerly awaiting Victor's much-anticipated announcement about a groundbreaking global initiative. Victor stepped onto the stage, his tailored suit impeccable and his smile exuding confidence. Despite his ongoing efforts to track down Lyra and Theo, he believed this gala would solidify his reputation. "Ladies and gentlemen," Victor began, his voice echoing through the microphone, "I am honored to unveil an initiative that will change the future forever." But before he could continue, the lights in the room dimmed and the massive screen behind him abruptly switched. A series of images appeared, lists of young women, their photos, and financial transactions tied to a trafficking network. Victor turned to the screen, his face frozen in shock. Murmurs rippled through the room as guests seated near the screen leaned forward, examining the damning evidence. The grand doors of the ballroom swung open, and Lyra entered, followed by Theo. Lyra wore a pristine white suit, her expression calm, but her eyes burning with determination. "Victor Langston," Lyra called out, her voice clear and commanding, "did you think you could hide forever? These images are undeniable proof of the trafficking network you've been running." Victor tried to laugh, but it came out strained. "These are fabricated. Don't believe her. This is a scheme to destroy my reputation." Before he could continue, Theo stepped forward, holding up a USB drive. "This contains all the data from Victor's system, financial transactions, emails, and even video evidence. Anyone here can verify it for themselves." At that moment, a team of FBI agents entered the room, led by a stern-looking woman. "Victor Langston," she announced, "you are under arrest for human trafficking, money laundering, and human rights violations." Victor struggled and protested, but there was nothing he could do. The guests stared at him with disgust, their earlier admiration replaced by silent condemnation. Cameras flashed as journalists captured the moment he was handcuffed, while influential attendees quietly slipped away, not wanting to be associated with the scandal. Lyra stepped onto the stage, addressing the crowd. "Today, I didn't just reclaim my freedom," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I reclaimed it for every victim who has suffered at the hands of Victor Langston. Justice has been served." Applause broke out, not in celebration, but in acknowledgement that the truth had finally prevailed. 1 year later, Lyra's life had transformed completely. She stood in a brightly lit auditorium, delivering a speech at a human rights conference. Applause echoed through the room as she shared her story, from escaping Victor Langston to her journey of standing up for victims harmed by him. Theo sat in the front row, pride shining in his eyes. Although the search for his sister Sophia was still ongoing, he hadn't given up hope. With the evidence Lyra had provided and the FBI's support, many victims had been rescued, and Victor's network had been completely dismantled. After the conference, Lyra and Theo strolled through a nearby park. "Have you found anything about Sophia?" Lyra asked, her voice soft but full of empathy. Theo smiled, though it carried a hint of sorrow. "Not yet, but I know I won't stop until I do." Valera took his hand, her gaze steady. "We'll find her together." Under the gentle glow of the setting sun, they walked side by side, not just as survivors, but as partners, ready to build a better future. Over the past year, Theo had remained by Lyra's side. Together, they rebuilt their lives, supported victims affected by Victor's crimes, and hosted conferences to raise awareness about human trafficking. From the intense days of work to peaceful moments of quiet, their bond grew naturally over time. One afternoon, Theo took Lyra to a small hill outside the city, where the view of the sunset stretched across the horizon. The golden light bathed the landscape, creating an atmosphere of quiet romance. "Do you remember this place?" Theo asked gently. Lyra nodded, smiling softly. "This is where you first told me about Sophia. I'll never forget." Theo took a deep breath, his eyes filled with sincerity. "Lyra, over the past year, you haven't just given me hope of finding Sophia, but you've also shown me that I can start over. You've been the light in my darkness." To Lyra's surprise, Theo knelt down and pulled out a small box, revealing a sparkling diamond ring. "Lyra Whitmore, will you build a future with me? not just to overcome the past, but to create a life full of meaning and happiness. Will you marry me? Lyra gasped, her eyes welling up with tears of joy. She smiled brightly and nodded. Yes, I will. The wedding was held in a quiet garden, bathed in sunlight and adorned with white flowers. Family, friends, and those they had helped came together to witness this joyous occasion. Lyra wore an elegant wedding gown, adorned with delicate details. Theo stood under a flower-covered arch, his eyes shining with happiness. As Lyra walked toward Theo, their eyes met, and no words were needed. Their gazes said it all: love, trust, and a promise of a bright future. I promise to always stand by your side, Theo said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. And I promise the same, Lyra replied, her smile radiant. Under the watchful eyes of their loved ones, they exchanged rings and began a new chapter of their lives, one filled with hope and love. Late afternoons in Savannah often carried a quiet melancholy, as if the city itself grew weary after a long day. Spanish moss hung low from ancient oak trees lining the damp cobblestone streets, and purple bougainvillea swayed gently in the breeze. On the tin roof of a small bakery named Sweet Magnolia, the rain tapped a soft, rhythmic lullaby, like a gentle reminder that something was coming to an end. Emma Reyes, 25, stood behind the counter, her flour-dusted hands frozen in place, eyes resting on the fogged-up window pane. It was hard to believe that this space, this kitchen, this scent of vanilla and cinnamon would soon cease to exist. Her mother's bakery had endured for nearly 20 years, but today marked the end of its struggle for survival. In her hand was a lone rejection letter. The third and the final. Below the sterile corporate signature lay a sentence, as brutal as a verdict. The building had been sold to a real estate developer. A boutique hotel would rise from its bones, and she, the daughter who gave up college, parties, and dreams to preserve her mother's legacy, would have no place left to belong. From the oven came the scent of what might be her last batch of cinnamon rolls. The familiar sweetness no longer comforted her. It stung, like a farewell whispered in sugar and spice. Outside, Savannah was drowning quietly in the rain, and inside, a heart was clinging to the last fragile threads of memory, unwilling to let go. The wooden door creaked softly as the wind chimes above it sang their usual song, pulling Emma out of her heavy thoughts. She looked up, and for a moment, the entire room seemed to pause. A man stepped inside, tall, broad-shouldered, his dark brown hair damp from the rain, and his black overcoat tailored so perfectly it might have been sewn onto him. He stood just past the threshold, his storm-green eyes scanning the room before they settled on her. Nathan Cole, the name printed across the sale documents. CEO of Cole and Easton Developments, the man the press hailed as the savior of forgotten towns. Emma didn't bother hiding the chill in her tone. "You here to see how fast I'm packing up?" Nathan removed his wet gloves, walked calmly to the counter, and replied, "I came to try the cinnamon rolls." She blinked. "Excuse me? What? You didn't know? Folks around here say they're the best in all of Savannah." His eyes held hers, not mocking, but focused in a way that made her feel oddly exposed. On the tray, 3 cinnamon rolls still sat warm. She had no plans to sell them, but something about letting even him walk out without tasting them felt wrong. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was habit. $35, she said flatly. He pulled out a crisp 100 and placed it on the counter. "Keep the change." Nathan took one bite and then slowly closed his eyes. For a fleeting moment, the polished businessman in front of her vanished, replaced by something softer, almost boyish. Emma didn't know why it struck her, but the sight tugged at something deep inside her chest. It had been 3 days, and Emma still couldn't forget the look on his face, that fleeting vulnerability when he took that first bite of her mother's cinnamon roll. That morning, the rain had finally stopped, but her heart remained clouded. She was wiping down the wooden counter when the familiar chime of the door echoed again. It was him. Nathan Cole, this time in a crisp white shirt, no coat. He held a leather folder in one hand and wore that same calm expression that unsettled her more than she cared to admit. "Good morning," he said softly. "I'd like to talk. If you have a moment." Emma crossed her arms, leaning slightly against the pastry display. "I'm busy closing down, Mr. Cole." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he placed the folder gently on the counter, as if laying down something fragile. "I don't want this bakery to disappear," he said. "Instead, I'd like to offer you the position of head pastry chef at the boutique hotel we're building here. I want to preserve this flavor and let it live on in a new form." Emma froze. "You'd have full creative control," he continued. "You can use your family recipes, name the menu, earn a competitive salary, full benefits. And if you're interested, I'm also planning a traditional baking workshop under your name." A part of her wanted to laugh. He had taken her place, and now he was offering her a job in her own kitchen. "So, I wouldn't own my mother's bakery anymore. I'd just be an employee in what used to be mine." "No," Nathan said, holding her gaze. "You'd be the soul that keeps it alive." That sentence, and the look in his eyes, firm yet unexpectedly tender, left her unsure whether to be angry or tempted to believe. 3 days had passed since that strange encounter, and Emma Reyes still couldn't stop thinking about the words Nathan Cole had said. She stood in the small kitchen of her bakery, kneading dough mechanically. Everything was covered in a thin layer of white flour, and the silence in the room felt almost heartbreaking. Dough clung to her fingers, the faint scent of cinnamon lingered in the air, but her mind was tangled like a frayed spool of thread. "I don't want this bakery to close, Miss Reyes. I want to invite you to be the head pastry chef for the new boutique hotel here." That sentence echoed in her mind like a recording stuck on repeat. There was no denying it. The offer was more than tempting. A high salary, full benefits, the chance to keep baking every day, to hold on to some part of her mother's legacy. But it came with a cost. She wouldn't be the owner anymore. She wouldn't be the one making the decisions. "You'd be crazy to turn this down," Chloe had said when Emma told her about it. Her best friend was always the practical one, someone who understood the value of an opportunity in an economy that wasn't built for dreamers. "It's not just about the job, Emma. He couldn't take his eyes off you. Don't pretend you didn't notice." Emma let out a short laugh. "Come on. He's a businessman, Chloe. I'm a baker who lives in a tiny apartment and wears the same old apron every day. Guys like him don't go for women like me. Maybe this time you should let yourself be someone worth going for." Before Emma could reply, the doorbell chimed. Her heart thudded in her chest for no good reason, and when the door opened, there he was again, Nathan Cole. He wore a navy gray suit, his dark hair neatly combed, eyes the color of a winter sea. In one hand he held a folder and a quiet, polite smile. "Good morning, Miss Reyes," he said, his warm voice filling the quiet space. Chloe glanced at Emma and quickly slipped into the back kitchen, not without giving her friend a playful nudge and a mischievous smirk. "Good morning, Mr. Cole," Emma replied, gripping her apron slightly to steady herself. "Back for more cinnamon rolls?" "I think I might be addicted," he joked, placing the folder on the counter. "But today, I'm here for another reason." He slid the folder toward her. "This is the revised contract. It includes everything we discussed and a few changes I think you'll find more comfortable." Emma glanced through the pages. There were new details, more flexible terms, improved working conditions, and most notably, a small line at the bottom: creative freedom, personalized pastry section, panaderia, Emma. She looked up, meeting his gaze. "I'm still not sure I'll say yes." Nathan nodded. "I'm not asking you to decide right away, but I do have a request." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "Let me show you that I'm serious, not just about the project, but about what it could become." "And how exactly do you plan to do that?" "There's a fundraising gala this Friday night. It'll be held at the hotel. The attendees will be partners, investors, and people connected to the project. I'd like you to come, not as an employee, but as a collaborator." Emma blinked. "A fancy party? Someone like her? I don't have anything to wear to a place like that." Nathan smiled, leaning in slightly. "There's a boutique on the ground floor of the hotel. Talented Mexican designers. Go pick out anything you like. Think of it as part of the negotiation." Then he gently lifted her hand, raising it as if it were the most natural thing in the world, and pressed a soft kiss to the back of it. Emma stood frozen, her heart thundering in her chest. "Give me a chance, just one night," he said softly. "I think you'll see things differently." The emerald green dress Emma Reyes finally chose, after nearly 2 hours of hesitation at the hotel boutique, hugged her figure with such grace and softness that she barely recognized herself in the full-length mirror of her tiny apartment. Her light brown hair had been skillfully pinned into a low chignon by Chloe Turner, with a few loose curls framing her face. A touch of soft makeup highlighted her green eyes, now brighter, deeper, carrying the weight of an untold story. "If Nathan Cole doesn't drop to one knee tonight, I'm officially declaring that men have lost all sense of beauty," Chloe said half-jokingly, as she adjusted the dress strap on Emma's shoulder. "You look stunning, Emma. If your mom could see you now, I swear she'd be crying proud tears." The mention of her mother tightened something in Emma's chest. Would she have supported her daughter getting involved in a high-stakes project like this, with a man from an entirely different world? "I'm only going for business," Emma said quietly, though even she didn't believe the detached tone in her voice. Chloe raised an eyebrow, handing her a dainty clutch purse. "Right, and I'm the Queen of England, face it." "You're trembling." The doorbell rang. Emma's heart skipped a beat. Nathan had said he'd send a driver, but she never imagined he would come himself. She stepped to the window and gently pulled back the curtain. "Oh my God," Chloe breathed. "If that's the driver, luxury car companies are clearly hiring runway models now." There he stood, Nathan Cole, impeccably dressed in a tailored black suit and crisp white shirt, the streetlight casting soft shadows on his sharply defined face. One arm rested casually on the sleek black car door, his sea-mule eyes shimmering like a galaxy in the night. Emma walked down the stairs on shaky legs, silently thanking herself for practicing in heels all afternoon. When she opened the door, Nathan's eyes drifted over her with a gaze that felt like a slow, deliberate caress. "Emma," he murmured, his voice slightly hoarse. "You look breathtaking." She blushed, looking down. "I'm not sure this dress was the right choice." Nathan stepped forward, gently took her hand and spun her in a slow turn. "Perfect. This color makes your eyes even more radiant." They entered the car together. On the way to the hotel, they sat in a comfortable silence. Only soft music played from the speakers, and the city lights flowed quietly past the windows. As the car pulled up to the entrance, lined with elegant vehicles arriving one after another, Nathan placed his hand gently over hers. "You're going to be just fine. Just be yourself. That honesty of yours, it's what I admire most." Emma nodded slightly. They stepped into the main hall, where the soft glow of hundreds of candles and crystal chandeliers merged with the graceful sound of strings. Almost instantly, all eyes turned to them. Nathan Cole, an icon of power, was not accompanied by a fellow executive or a fashion model, but by a woman no one recognized. A woman of quiet strength and unassuming beauty who stood beside him with calm pride. A woman who, for a few seconds, made the entire gala pause. And then she appeared. A striking woman in a crimson dress that hugged every curve. Jet black hair cascaded down her back, and her eyes gleamed with something sharp. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Sabrina," Nathan nodded. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Neither did I," she replied, then turned to Emma. "And you are?" "Emma Reyes," she answered calmly. "I'm heading the pastry concept for the hotel." "Oh," Sabrina smiled slyly. "Another talent Nathan's discovered. He does have a gift for finding the right people for the right projects." Her words floated like silk, but cut like glass. Emma's spine stiffened. Something in the room shifted. After Sabrina walked away, Emma asked bluntly, "Who was she?" "An ex," Nathan replied with a small sigh. "We used to work together. It didn't end well." Emma studied his face, her mind now swimming with questions. If Nathan had used this same approach with other women, how could she trust anything he said? On the drive home, sitting beside him in silence, Emma finally asked, "Did you ever tell her about your grandmother's bakery in New Orleans?" Nathan hesitated. The flicker of pause across his face was brief, but enough to plant a seed of doubt in her heart. And suddenly, the warmth she'd begun to feel, the laughter, the music, his hand over hers, curdled into something uncertain. It wasn't anger that followed, it was fear. That maybe, just maybe, she had fallen too fast into a story that wasn't hers to keep. 3 days had passed since the gala. Emma hadn't responded to any of Nathan's texts or calls, not out of anger, but because she needed space to separate feeling from reason. Her mother's recipe book lay open on the kitchen table, pages stained with butter and a faint scent of cinnamon. But today, those familiar lines no longer offered comfort. Her heart was heavy with just one question. Did he ever truly understand what it means to lose a bakery like I have? Without another thought, Emma slipped the book into her bag, called a car, and set off for New Orleans. The house stood on a quiet street with red brick walls and a white picket fence. Yellow chrysanthemums bloomed on the porch, and a small brass wind chime danced gently in the humid breeze. Just as she raised her hand to knock, the door opened. "Nathan?" No suit, no executive edge, just a man in a faded shirt, his face worn from sleepless nights. "You came," he whispered, like he wasn't sure it was real. "I need the truth." In the kitchen, he poured 2 cups of coffee and set them on a well-worn wooden table. Then he pulled out an old photograph. A boy with messy brown hair kneading dough beside an older woman whose eyes looked exactly like his. "This is my grandmother, Ethel's Hearth. Her bakery ran here for over 50 years. They tried everything to push her out. When she died, I promised I'd never let that happen again. Every project since, I've tried to protect what's real." Emma looked at him, not with suspicion now, but with something deeper. There was no CEO in his eyes, only a grandson who had once watched someone he loved lose everything. "And me?" she asked softly. "What am I in all of this?" Nathan stepped forward, lowering himself onto one knee in front of her. Not with pride, not with charm, but with sincerity and vulnerability. "At first, maybe I thought you reminded me of someone," he began softly. "But then, when you stood up and faced the world, When you baked that last cinnamon roll like hope still mattered, I knew you weren't like anyone else. You were yourself. You are the one I don't just want to help. I want to walk beside. Tears slipped quietly down Emma Reyes's cheeks. I was scared, Nathan, she whispered. Scared that I was just another role in your story. I understand, but I don't need a role, he said gently. I need someone who puts her whole heart into every pastry she makes. Someone who sees the value in the small, honest things. He reached out, brushing her cheek softly with his fingertips. And if you'll let me, I want you to be the one who stays. Emma looked at him, surrounded by the old kitchen, by the scent of flour and wood, by the memory of a woman long gone and the promise of a man who had changed. I don't know what the future holds, she said, her voice trembling. Neither do I, Nathan smiled, but I know where we can begin. She nodded, taking his hand in hers. After that night in New Orleans, Emma didn't give an answer. Not right away. They spent a few quiet days together in Ethel's old house, baking, revisiting forgotten recipes, and letting the past speak. No promises were made, no plans rushed, just honesty and silence shared between two people who had both lost something once dear. When Emma returned to Savannah, she didn't bring a decision. She brought something far more powerful: trust. 3 months later, the Magnolia Academy opened its doors. 1 year on, the building that once held Sweet Magnolia now housed a warm culinary haven where Emma taught classes, her spirit filling the space like cinnamon in the air. She was no longer the girl behind the counter, exhausted and afraid. She had become a guide for women stepping out of their own small kitchens and into possibility. In class, Emma leaned over to adjust the cuff of an older student. "A good dough's like a good heart, soft when it needs to be," she smiled. The bell above the door chimed gently. Nathan stepped in, still in a tailored suit, but with eyes no longer focused on the next deal. Now, they only searched for one thing: her. Their gaze met as naturally as breath. "When class wraps up, there's something I want to show you," he said quietly. After the class, he led her out to the back porch. In his hand, a small velvet box, the color of midnight sky. "I never thought I'd love again," he began, voice low. "But you came like soft rain after a long drought." He opened the box, a simple ring, set with a deep blue sapphire, steadfast and true. "Emma Reyes," he said, eyes shining in the late afternoon light. "Will you marry me?" Among the scent of cinnamon, golden sunlight, and memories made whole again, she whispered. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." That night, when everything had quieted down, Emma Reyes stood on the rooftop, hands wrapped around a mug of hot cocoa. Nathan Cole approached from behind and gently draped a coat over her shoulders. "I've been thinking," he whispered, "how long it took for us to find each other. Maybe not that long," she smiled softly. "Maybe we just had to get lost first, to recognize where home truly is." Nathan bowed his head and pressed a kiss to her forehead. "I've never been this sure of anything," he murmured. "I want to spend the rest of my life learning how to bake, teaching with you, and if you'll let me, building a real home together." Emma looked up at him. There were no flowers, no ring, just one sincere question, and two hearts beating in harmony. "Then shall we rise a shared dream together?" she whispered, eyes glistening. Nathan smiled. "My home is your home." And they both laughed, beneath a sky full of stars with the lingering scent of cinnamon from the evening's baking class, surrounded by two hearts once broken, now finding peace in the warmth of a new love.